Hi, my name's Joe. I'm 19 years old. I'm a bartender. I'm talking today about my experience with depression. So it's hard to say exactly when it started. On some level, it has always been there. When I was growing up, a lot of bullying. Parents didn't get on well. It would have been when I was around 9, 10 years old. Um, Mostly verbal, sometimes physical. It was the same sort of stuff every day for the entire time that I was at school. Yeah, so I think it would have been when I was around 12 years old that I realised that it could be something like depression. It's just something that I'd seen online. It's like a little picture, symptoms of depression. So that sounds like me. So when I was 16, I joined the army. It's been something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. I think for me, it kind of represented being able to have a new start. Um, it wasn't quite that in reality. I didn't have my phone except for 10 minutes like, in the evening. I didn't get to go on weekends, so it was living with this group of lads that I'd never met before. Doing a lot of work every day, never really having any breaks. So it was quite full on. First week or so was probably the hardest part. And the first few days were okay, and then the homesickness and all that starts to kind of hit home. So at 16 years old, I'd never really spent any significant amount of time away from home. So that started probably a couple of weeks in. And as mentioned earlier, the lads that I was with were all fresh out of school. Because I was one of the quiet ones, essentially just easy target. So with the training, it made it quite difficult to focus and put something on my mind. And because of that, I was making mistakes with the room inspections, things like that. And then because I was making mistakes with that sort of thing, they would get sort of more annoyed at me. And it just kind of snowballs from there. Yeah, so I think it was difficult with the training. A lot of times just in a low mood all the time, quite stressed out with it. A lot of times feeling quite lost and like there wasn't really any purpose to what I was doing. It's quite difficult sort of not having lads around you to fall back on. So about 2/3 of the way through the course, things had just got too much. So we had a welfare centre on site, and I went down there just to get everything off my chest. Didn't want to go and get anyone in trouble or get grass or anything like that. Just wanted to talk to someone. What I didn't realise was that if you tell them anything to do with bullying, they have to pass it on to your platoon staff. So the day after that was quite intense. They cut it up as a surprise locker inspection as a way to get me and one of the lads out of the room. For people that I'd said had been involved in it, got pulled to one side, got a lot of shouting out, a lot of telling off. And at that point, they gave me the choice that I could have them moved to a different platoon, have them kicked out of the army as a whole, or just leave them be and hope that it went back to being okay. So because I hadn't gone down with the intention of getting anyone in trouble, I just said, hopefully it'll be fine from now. From there, things were okay for a couple of weeks, and then eventually, everyone knew that I had gone down there to get people in trouble. But as things started to go back to normal, people would kind of choose to forget that, and at some point trying to accuse me of going down there deliberately trying to grass people up. So that went on more or less until the end of the training. After that, I went down to Gibraltar Barracks to do my combat engineer training, Royal Engineers. I got there. a lot better. The lads I was with were a lot more grown up, a lot easier to get on with, which definitely helps when you do work like that. Like, even if what you are doing is pointless, if you got people around who you can get on with, you can have a bit of a laugh about it. It was a lot of work on the course. We could be working from 6 o'clock every morning, making sure we're ready for room inspections, we had those every morning, making sure we had time to go to breakfast, get a receipt to show that we had been. We'd do a day's training, takes up to about 4:30, and then we'd have to do the online training package to make sure that we'd taken in everything that we'd been doing through the day. That could take a couple of hours, making sure that the entire block was ready for the inspection the next day. And that was everything, like down to windows, making sure everything's been dusted. So it's definitely a lot of work, working anywhere up to 11, 12 at night. When I first started there, it's always difficult coming back off of a long period of leave and going back into the army lifestyle. Going into the training course, especially after my experience in phase 1, it's definitely difficult. I think I never quite managed to get into the right mindset. So I was still making mistakes that could have been quite easily spotted if I'd been thinking properly. So I still find it really difficult to stay focused and stay motivated. Just messing things up. I think at the time, I was in a place where I just thought I could deal with it myself. I don't think it was anything that I needed to speak out about. Eventually, 3-4 weeks into the training, it just got too much. We'd been working all week, we were on a working weekend, it was Saturday night. There wasn't anything that really triggered it, but I just found myself having quite a big panic attack. And one of the lads that was in the same room as me, he walked back in, didn't really know what to do or how to help, so he went and told the corporal what had happened. So the next morning, got pulled into a meeting with that corporal. Basically said, look, I can't tell you what to do, but I think you need to go to the med centre to speak to one of the doctors. So the next morning, that's what I did. Went and saw one of the doctors, basically had to tell him everything that had been going on. She recommended to go on antidepressants, escitalopram. So she gave me a box of those. It's up to you if you take them or not. Read through the leaflet, have a think about it. We'll book an appointment for next month. If you take them, we can see how it's going. If not, we can talk about what else we can do. I didn't at that point. I had some reservations about taking tablets anyway. I thought it'd make me less myself. And having that box and reading through that big list of side effects, normal stuff like headaches, general stuff you'd see on medicine, increased risk of suicide, random profuse bleeding. Those ones will nerve you a little bit. So I had an appointment with the doctor about a month or so later. Thought of it, I wasn't taking the pills, I didn't feel comfortable with it at that point. And at that stage, I'd been given the option to either leave the army by choice, so to file for discharge as of right, or to go through the medical discharge process. If I'd taken the discharge as of right, I would have been out a week later. And at that point, I didn't know what I was going to do once I was out of the army. So I took the medical discharge route. No, at that point, there wasn't any option of staying in the army. And more or less any mental health problem back then was, you were deemed unfit for service. So I think at that stage, it felt like my life had been thrown off the rails a bit. When you're in the army, you've got quite a clear-cut path. Stayed in, would have finished my combat engineer course, got on to do my electrician's training, and at that point, I trained for life, everything like that. So finding out I was going to be medically discharged was quite difficult. Threw all of that off track. Wasn't too sure what I was going to do. Didn't really have any knowledge of how things worked back in the normal world. So I'd never had to make a CV or apply for jobs before. So that was quite difficult. So everything was just kind of a bit weird for the first month or so. I didn't really know what I was doing. It was quite frantic or fast-paced, trying to work out stuff like CVs, finding jobs, what I wanted to do with my life. Eventually settled down, found some temporary work, and that kind of kept me going whilst I was trying to work out what I wanted to do. Yeah, so at that point, family issues were mostly solved. My parents had ended up being divorced, and they were both like completely different people. I get on with them both a lot better now. So the hardest part in that period was the end of a relationship with a girlfriend that I'd been with for about a year and a half at that point. I'd say that was probably the hardest part of my life. So in that period of time, low mood was worse than ever, never really sleeping properly. I just felt like I had to be doing anything I could to distract myself and just to be able to get through the day. There were a lot of suicidal thoughts. It went on for a couple of weeks, and eventually it just got to a point that I couldn't do it anymore. So I had to go to my doctors, basically said to him, I think I need to go on the pills, so there's not any other option. So the GP kind of agreed with me, we had a chat about what would be right for me. They put me on sertraline. First week or so of being on sertraline, it's just weird. It's hard to put into words. It's just really difficult to think or to do anything. Like just forget where I was sometimes or what I was doing. Just being halfway through something then completely forgetting where I was. I'd stopped driving for a few days because I didn't feel like I was safe to be driving. So at that time I did also try CBT, which I think it was more the way that it was delivered than the actual therapy. That I didn't get on well with that. I just show up once a week or once every 2 weeks. I was just like, how are you feeling today? Take this, fill it out, bring it back next time. So not a lot of value in that. So after that, things did start to get a lot better. I had a good month or two where I felt really good about myself, a lot of confidence, being in generally a good mood. And I think some of that was due to the fact that I'd started a new job, I was enjoying it at that point, getting on really well with all the people there. Eventually, we finished the training, and the nature of the job being outbound telemarketing, it's incredibly stressful, being shouted at every day. No one really treats you like an actual human. So after a few months of that, it got to a point where I was pretty much just having mental breakdowns at work every day. Yeah, so it kind of went back to how it had been the majority of the time whilst I was in the army and whilst I was at school. Yeah, so eventually I started doing some kind of private talking therapy, just general counselling. At the minute, I'm mostly okay. Still have off days, but I think everyone does, regardless of whether you do have underlying issues or not. I'm still trying to work out what I want to do in my life and where I'm going. I know roughly where I want to be. It's just trying to get there, feeling a bit stuck. And mostly we're doing okay. I'd say there's a huge improvement of where I was before. I'm off the tablets now, feel okay myself. I can get through every day. Yeah, so I'll talk to my friends about it. Some of them still aren't completely confident talking about it themselves. The best way for that is just to bring it up first. No one wants to be the first person to talk about it, but it's a lot easier if someone else does. So my advice would be speak out, whether that's your friends, your family, your doctor, whoever you feel comfortable talking to. Use what's there. There's no point in trying to be a man about it.